Hello and welcome to the latest post-match here on the Blue Room. It's finished Leicester City 2, Everton 2 in a pulsating game for the neutrals, I would imagine. Watching two really, really poor sides go one-on-one with each other. I know Rob Veer's here, by the way, and so is Peter McFarlane. Us three are going to be doing this. And one of the things that Rob sent me, I think it was well before the game finished, actually. He said he's going to come in hot here and... I'm just gonna open the floor, Rob. Crack on.
Wow. Okay.
I thought I'd keep you on your toes.
First of all, Dave, I just like to say to everyone out there that when you primarily have post-match duty for the Blue Room podcast for the away games, you kind of accept that as part and parcel with that, you're not going to get to have a lot of happy conversations. Okay. So, I mean, I sort of get that this is all part of the territory, right? But I have already seen strewn across my Twitter feed lots of tweets that sound something like this. Well, there are some encouraging signs there aside from all the individual errors. And that's where I want to start.
Yeah,
because that's like saying, I mean, it's like saying, other than my house burning to the ground, I thought that the fire department did a pretty good job of responding in time. I mean, it's like,
I took it. Just sorry to interrupt you, Rob. I took it as, oh great, Santa's come, but he's just put a bowl of ash over in the corner and not give me any gifts. That's the sort of thing that I had in my mind when you were speaking that way.
Yeah. Well, let's just start with the baseline first. The draw, 2-2 draw, and I think that's where we've got to start. A draw was not enough tonight. A draw for me might as well have been a loss. Now, I understand that a point, I guess, keeps this theoretical hope alive. And I don't want to abandon all hope that we could find some way out of it. But I think the point now is that we have to kind of acknowledge what we are faced with here in the form of this manager who has decided that his own hubris is more important. His own pride is more important than doing what needs to be done. I was shocked to watch over and over and over again those video clips, just to have it hammered home from that debacle against Newcastle, and to watch that defense. I mean, it's one thing to just get beat because you're not as good as your opposition. It's another for there to be a pronounced lack of fight and lack of effort. To then see the manager reward those types with essentially making no changes outside of Seamus Coleman, I found to just be not, I wouldn't say shocking, Dave, because this has kind of become the brand. And we saw it on display today. He is going to cut his nose off with Michael Keane to spite his face. And that is just the decision he has made. And he's going to insult all of us by saying something along the lines of, well, I can't play Yerry Mina because, he hasn't played in a while, and we can't, I can't just bring in a guy like that. And I'm just like, you mean after Michael Keane had literally not played, since the end of last season, and he brought him in? Look, I don't even need to make the argument for Yerry Mina. It could have been Connor Cody that came in today. But the bottom line is that there has been this just absolute gaping hole in our defense. And given the quote brand of this manager is that he is someone who is going to have a, very solid setup, and he is going to be a pragmatist, and he is going to make us hard to beat. To have delivered such a shocking run of defensive displays from a side that absolutely needs points, needs wins, And to continue to do the same thing over and over again is the ultimate hubris. And I think that, Dave, for as long as we've been doing the Blue Room podcast together, you and I feel like we are constantly talking about Everton managers that come in here, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's something about the water on Merseyside. I don't know if it is just some kind of weird like hoodoo that takes over these guys, but they all develop these really strange blind spots for players, for formations, for digging in despite all evidence to the contrary. And today, I will just tell you that first half display of center half play by Michael Keane was as bad as every joke that has ever been made about Alcaraz against Dynamo Kiev. Okay, again, you know what I mean? Like, that is the worst defensive display I've ever seen, and I've watched plenty of bad individual performances for Everton, and it's not even so much about Michael Keane anymore. It's more about this notion that you have a manager who talks about hard work and needing to have the right attitude and having to earn your way into performances and results and really kind of saying the word meritocracy without saying it. And yet I can't find any compelling reason as to why he continues to stubbornly stick with that pairing back there, other than they used to be good when he was at Burnley 7 years ago. And I can't really come up with any other rationale besides that. And then on top of all of that, have the display that you had throughout the game to equalize, and then to seemingly kind of shut off and allow Leicester to operate in what essentially looked like a hockey power play for the better part of 15 minutes, all whilst not even making a slight glance towards our bench for any substitution. And I will grant you that we don't have a lot of great options on the bench, but this is a side that played on Thursday. They looked absolutely spent out there. And to not bring on Damari Gray when you had to win this game, like, a draw doesn't really move the needle. We are still about a 60 to 66% chance, 2 out of 3 chance of going down. To act like you were trying to preserve this draw, it just speaks to what has been the issue for the last several weeks, which is that while our rivals around us are finding a way to get 3 points, occasionally somehow, and to move on up, we are now in a position where we not only have to jump 1, but now 2 rivals, Forest and Leeds, just to stay in this league. I will grant you that Sean Dyche had a very difficult job coming in, but I will also remind everyone that he lobbied for this job. He made lots of comments about how he had kept up, less talented and worse sides than this in his history. There was a real, if you didn't know it was him, it all had a very Allardyce type tone, except that I would give me Allardyce's boring mid-table finish now, Dave. Like, I can't believe that Sean Dyche came in here, and I expected it to be boring. I expected it to be dry. But what I didn't expect was for him to come in here and persistently stick with a failing formula on defense and still look people in the eye and point to his little masterclass video about the V. Yeah. I am tired of every empty word that he has to say. I'm tired of these players and their empty words. And really, the last guy with any heart invested in this thing that's been playing lately, Seamus Coleman, looks like he is out for the season. So what now, Everton? What now?
Yeah. And a lot of the points you've made there bring my thoughts back, and I'll come to you now, Pete, about former managers we've had who seem to have done the exact same thing that Sean Dyche has done. I'm not talking about tactics. I'm not talking about personnel. I'm talking about stubbornness. And it's something that has come to my mind, ironically, apart from Lampard, it did seem to mix things around. And, you know, by and large, he did sort of open a few worms for many of the players, given what we've heard about what happened in the dressing room and things like that whilst he was our manager. Obviously, no credit to him because that ended up as a car crash well before 2023 hit the dawn. But with Dyche there persisting with his Burnley best friends, I thought Dyche was actually okay tonight. Sorry, Dyche. McNeil was actually okay tonight in the second half. I thought he was dreadful in the first. The Michael Keane persistence doesn't make sense. And the thing that really gets to me, Pete, is the easy way out. And I think many fans have started to what Rob said there, pull themselves away a little bit by consistently saying, this isn't Dyche's fault. This isn't Dyche's fault. This isn't Dyche's fault. They're things we've said for quite some time, several years now, to managers that have come in. It's not their fault because of, and there have been mitigating circumstances for people to say those things. Yes, absolutely. Like Rob referred to then, when he first gets the job, there are so many different things that are so wrong with this football club that we consistently talk about all the time. We consistently say to each other, message to each other, tell our friends on the pub, wherever you are, there are problems with this football club. When we did last season, we did the statement from Bill Kenwright, the FAB thing that's come out the other day. I think that it's really, really easy for a fan or anybody else with an opinion on this club to say, well, for their favourites or certain people that they like, even players, they will say, well, ultimately, yet they might well have played poorly, yet they've been shit, yet we probably don't need them anymore and they should leave the club. But that's because of XXX, what's gone behind us. Yet, I think when Sean Dyche came in, again, what Rob said about, he's decided to take the job. He's decided to believe, and rightly so, that he's going to be the manager that saves Everton from getting relegated, and then we look further ahead to the future and all that sort of thing we end up discussing in the summer. But that still does not excuse certain decisions that managers make that cost Everton games. Now, I'm not going as far to say as he himself is blamed for costing us a game, but he himself could have substituted Michael Keane at half-time, could have really ended up with a result for us there for 3 points. That is, I mean, I don't think any draw there is anywhere near enough. I think Rob mentioned that as well. But I can't look at that and think that we would have not been better had Michael Keane gone off the pitch, because I thought he was dreadful. The thing that really got to me was when Jamie Vardy runs past him to score that goal, and Michael Keane actually tries to take him down, but he couldn't even get near him to take him down. When that happened, I was furious, to be honest with you. I don't know how he persists with him, especially when, look, Yerry Mina he's been a question for a long time, and we've had many debates about it, Rob, about Yerry Mina and his time at the club. But you've got Conor Cody there as well. You've got options. They may not be great, but you've got options that I firmly believe will be better than having Michael Keane on that pitch. And I think Michael Keane cost us high percentage. He's in terms of high percentage of the reason why we didn't win that game. Over to you, Pete, because you've been sat there for about 20 minutes waiting, listening to me and Rob talk on about this.
Well, sorry, no, it's not at all. I always enjoy listening to you two anyway, so it's great to just get a front row seat. But it's I mean, first of all, in terms of I think all the points you make about Sean Dyche and his commitment to certain players and things like that, I don't think anyone could argue with that. I actually said it probably about a month ago. I think I used the phrase that Sean Dyche would be beyond reproach if we went down, because I just felt that he'd been dealt such a bad hand. The problem is that I was talking about in terms of in an attacking sense that we didn't sign anyone in January for him. What I didn't expect was that he would persist with players who were so out of form at the back. A friend of mine, Paul, me and him walk the dogs every evening, and we always have this thing about Michael Keane. And it's you can always tell with Michael Keane within the first 5 minutes what type of game he's going to have. If he makes one single mistake or if he has one bad pass, his head's gone. He's gone for 90 minutes. There's no comeback for him. He's a mentally weak footballer. I think Jamie Vardy, when Dominic Calvert-Lewin missed that chance where the keeper saves it and Leicester go up the other end, I think it was at 2-1 at that stage. Jamie Vardy turns Michael Keane inside out, and he did it.
Yeah,
he did it 3 or 4 times tonight, and Jamie Vardy's 34, and he absolutely ran rings. He ran rings around Michael Keane, ran rings around him, and I look at it and think, Connor Cody. I know he's not everyone's, cup of tea, but I think that Connor.
And by the way, Patrick, he's 36. If we're going to check our math here,
36,
yes, 36.
36. Apologies. I was thinking COVID years, don't count them. But it's and when you look at that, I mean, that's even worse. He's 36 and he's running rings around them. But yeah, I just think that Michael Keane is too flat-footed and it takes too long for a signal to go from his brain to his feet for him to be a Premier League centre half. And I just think that, when we've got options like Connor Cody, Yerry Mina, as an example. I mean, if he talks about people, players who haven't played all season or haven't played enough, well, he's happy to throw Dominic Calvert-Lewin in, isn't he? Who's missed most of the season. But then he's not happy to throw Yerry Mina in. The other thing as well is that Yerry Mina is actually a real threat from set pieces, which he's proven at international level. We've putting balls into the box from corners and time again.
Well, Pete, remember Leicester are really good at defending set pieces, so there's really no point in having Yerry Mina.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's it. It's one of the main threats that would have been tonight is from set pieces, and it's the amount of times that we float a ball into the back post and Michael Keane or James Tarkowski just heads it over, and it happens time and time again. Yerry Mina would have had an absolute field day tonight, but I'm going to try and be positive. I'm going to flip it and try and be positive. When we were 2-1 down, I'm looking at the league table thinking we're out of it, we're gone. I just looked at it and thought, right, Leicester are going to pull away now. I thought Forest are playing Southampton next, and all of a sudden, the walls were all caving in, and I thought that's it, we're done. Actually, having said that, because of the way the results went at the weekend, maybe it's just the Evertonian in me of just that hope that always kills you. A point in the end for me isn't the end of the world. Isn't the end of the world that I thought it would be. I'm looking at the fixtures of everyone else around us. The big saving grace for me is that everyone else around us is just as shit as we are, and if not worse. So one thing I would say is that tonight, at least we created chances. We actually created more chances than I've seen us create for a long, long time. Although we did miss a lot of chances. I always say I'd rather see us miss chances than not have any. It showed that we actually were able to put on a performance. And obviously, Leicester are a team who are, they're a very poor side. Leicester, very poor side. All they've got is Maddison and Vardy, and and what do? We pass the ball to Maddison in midfield, and when Alex Iwobi decides to, for some reason, make the schoolboy error. One of the first things you get told when you're a kid, don't pass it across your own midfield like that. When you've got players who can break on you, you don't pass it across the face of goal. You don't pass it across the face of midfield, a blind pass like he did. But yeah, I'm looking at it thinking, well, Pickford makes a penalty save, keeps us in the game. We managed to fight back to 2-2. Players didn't let their heads drop. I don't think Seamus Coleman allowed them to let the heads drop. When you've got Seamus Coleman coming off with what looks like potentially could be a broken leg, he's getting stretched.
I think the confirmation, what's been said since then, Pete, is that it's his knee, not a broken
ACL.
leg. But the thing
ACL.
is, well, yeah, exactly. So many things I haven't had it myself many years ago. That thing's often worse than a break. So
yeah, I was gonna say when you've got him getting stretchered off, he's getting oxygen and he's getting stretchered off. Maybe he's if he's done his ACL, he's done something serious anyway. And he's like that on the stretcher. He nearly fell off the stretcher because he's turning around to everyone saying, "Come on!" He's telling all the players to carry on fighting. This guy is getting stretchered off. Potentially, that's the last you'll ever see of him in his footballing career. And he's showing more fight coming off on a stretcher than Michael Keane has in 6 years.
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Well, and Dave, I want to be real clear to the point Peter's making here, which is that, look, we're still we're still mathematically alive, okay? And I refuse to make predictions about, like, I don't want to ride this emotional wave and just get super dark, right? I don't want to do that, because I want to pull for this thing until there's nothing left to pull for, in terms of survival. I think, though, what is just so, I think, dispiriting about all of this is that for everyone who says, hey, we played good except for the individual errors, and it's just like, yeah, but that's the thing, is our individual errors cost us goals against. You know what I mean? Like, we are a side that has really no margin for error. Now, I will defend Dyche and any manager who looks at this squad and says, I don't have other options to be productive beside, in attack, or at least scoring goals, other than Dominic Calvert-Lewin. That's not Sean Dyche's fault. For those who were upset, and rightly so, at Iwobi's terrible flat pass that resulted in, oh God, was that goal number 2? I think that was the second goal, right? Yeah, that was the second goal tonight. You can, even with Iwobi, you can say, all right, you can say, let's get Iwobi out of there, or let's not start Iwobi. But what are really your options then? I mean, I guess you could say we start Gray and put Iwobi on the bench, and you kind of play in a different formation. But as we saw tonight, not just on Iwobi's equalizer, for whatever mistakes he makes, and for whatever you may be underwhelmed by, he's about he and McNeil, and really McNeil, it's only some of the time, but Iwobi's the only one out there who's probably going to have a chance to create a chance, if that makes sense, right? The problem for Dyche, and where it is indefensible, is that he actually has options defensively. And
yes,
and what I would ask any of you out there to do is to, and let's say, I've heard the amount is rumored to be different things, Dave, and maybe you've heard it, but basically Sean Dyche has millions of pounds in the form of a bonus, if I recall correctly, tied to Everton staying up. Okay, so my question to all of you out there who want to say that Sean Dyche, hey, because I reject this whole narrative that Sean Dyche is a hero if he keeps this up, and it's not his fault at all if we go down. Like, that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? He has to own part of the blame if he's going to get so much of the collective plaudits if we stay up, right?
Well, we had a long discussion about this on the most recent long con we had, didn't we, Rob? A huge discussion about this.
Yeah, no, and so exactly. But Dave, here's my thing. Let's say any of you out there were told that you have the opportunity to get millions of pounds in the form of some sort of bonus, and you have to actually ask those same people that in pursuit of that goal, you have to decide whether or not you are going to count on Michael Keane or not count on Michael Keane. And the fact that with everything on the line, not just the club's survival, which means so much to us, but for him, even just selfishly, huge amount of payoff and credit if he keeps this up, and probably a contract extension if he does so, right? That he has looked at this situation defensively and said, and again, rewatch that fourth goal against Newcastle, that Newcastle scored against us, and look at what Michael Keane does on that goal. For him to have watched all of these performances, and by the way, that's not the only one. Even in the quote Michael Keane game where he scored that amazing equalizer against Spurs, he's the one who gave up the penalty that made that a draw instead of a win. Like there are Chelsea, I can point to that. Like, there are all of these other games, and for him to continue to look at that and to say, nah, I'm gonna continue to place my faith. I'm gonna bet. Like, he looks at Michael Keane and says, yeah, that's a guy worth betting on. And that to me is the scariest part of this, because now I feel almost held hostage. It sounds like I'm just blaming Michael Keane, and don't get me wrong, guys. I want to be totally fair here and admit to some bias. I hate Michael Keane. He's the worst. Okay, I have been biased against him for a long time, and I'm not going to hide that from any of you. Okay, but now I don't have to make that argument. Michael Keane makes that argument for himself about how bad he is every time he sets foot on the pitch, every time he costs Everton goals and points, and ultimately costs us our survival. Yeah, it's Michael Keane's fault, but I blame the guy who continues to put him out there. And as I said on Twitter tonight, I'm not convinced that Michael Keane would have picked Michael Keane for this game. That's the state of him, and that is what, you know, Pete, you alluded to about his absolutely fragile confidence. The best Michael Keane has ever played in an Everton shirt is when, ironically, he was paired with Yerry Mina for a long time, and
behind closed doors as well, but there's no fans.
And so, for any of you who have been saying, well, you can't play Yerry Mina because he could get injured, that literally means nothing when there's only 4 games left, or in this case today, 5 games left. Who cares? If he gets injured, he's gone this summer anyway. That's been true for months. And for any of you who say, well, you can't play Yerry Mina. I mean, Yerry Mina, like, when's the last time he played a full 90? I'll tell you when. It was literally the full 90 he played the last game of Frank Lampard's tenure before Sean Dyche came in. So he's been a fit, unselected sub this whole time. And again, forget, even if you want to put Yerry Mina aside for a minute, that's, fine, do that. Connor Cody is absolutely a better alternative than Michael Keane because, yes, Cody also made mistakes leading to goals as well, but not at this rate. Nothing like this. This is a new level. And for him to continue to put Michael Keane and put this club in this position is, to me, the absolute height of arrogance. And that's the thing. I can't blame him for I blame the board for not signing a striker in January. I blame this board for the entire construction of this squad to a large degree and the susceptibility that it's created. But make no mistake, there are some options that Sean Dyche has had at his disposal. He has made choices that he has to own. And I simply will not have people telling me that he had no choice and that none of this was his fault. Absolutely not. He came in with a reputation of being this defensively solid manager, and he has delivered nothing close to what was promised. That is the reason we're in the position we're in right now. At least that's a big part of the reason, in addition to all of the things that we already knew about the squad and that Dyche knew about the squad before he came in. He knew we didn't have enough quality attacking players. He looked at all of that and said, I still want this job. I can still absolutely keep this group up. And he has made decisions that have actively sabotaged his own stated efforts to keep Everton Football Club in the Premier League.
It's hard to argue against that, because that initial point that I made about there seems to be a real persistence when managers come to us. Look, I've not analysed enough of other managers that go to other clubs who refuse to make changes because they're so adamant that what they'd say and do is the best thing to happen, the best decision to make. I don't think you see that level of humility in managerial circumstances in that professional level of the game. Absolutely not. Otherwise, many managers would say to you they wouldn't be in the position they were in unless they didn't persist with what they thought is right. I just think, Pete, when you see, I mean, it's right before your eyes as a manager, and you see the conditions that we're in. I say conditions. You see the way that we play, the players that are struggling, the ones who are actually benefiting ourselves in a game, and the ones who are costing us. It seems pretty obvious when 3 Evertonians are sitting here and have spent the last half hour talking about the main issue why we've gone and not got 3 points in a game, or why we've conceded goals in a game, which has been a consistent issue for such a long time. I mean, that's what makes us so frustrating. Obviously, there's everything off the pitch that makes us really frustrating, but this is post-match, we're focusing on the game. For him not to make a sub other than the one that he was forced to by putting Patterson, who he allegedly doesn't like as a right back, because he decided to play Ben Godfrey there ahead of him when he returned to full fitness. Godfrey wasn't even in the squad today. These are the type of things I look at that start to make managers you think have come here to be the one that actually gets this thing fixed or gets us on an even keel in the Premier League. Yet when you still see those decisions, they are so frustrating to us as fans, aren't they?
100%. And do you know what as well? If you just take it back to like basic stats as well and basic statistics and in terms of what Sean Dyche has seen since he's come in as Everton manager, I saw this stat before tonight's game, when it says starts. This is starts under Sean Dyche, Connor Cody and Michael Keane. So Connor Cody 4 starts, Michael Keane 9. Connor Cody 2 wins, Michael Keane 1. Connor Cody 2 clean sheets, Michael Keane 2. Goals conceded, Connor Cody 4, Michael Keane 18. Conceded per game on average, Connor Cody 1, Michael Keane 2. And that was before tonight. So Connor Cody has had twice as many wins, the same amount of clean sheets, and he's only played 4 games. And Michael Keane has tonight played his 10th start for Sean Dyche, and Michael Keane has consistently conceded 2 goals per game on average.
Yeah, Connor Cody lost his job over those numbers. Like, let's be clear. The manager looked at Cody and said, I can't look at this. I cannot look at these performances and the goals were given up and continue to persist with this guy. So I've got to make a change. And he went to Michael Keane. And you know what? Hey, if Michael Keane had worked, I would be the first one saying, I hate to admit it, my God, I hate this guy, but it's worked. But it's not working, and all the evidence is there for everyone to see.
Absolutely.
On those stats you revealed there, the reason why Connor Cody, and this is the thing that probably gets me a little bit more than the numbers you've actually said there, Pete. What got me was that he was dropped after the defeat to Villa at home, where he made a dreadful error where Buendia just ripped him apart and scored the winner. We lost 3-1, I think. He scored their final goal and just ripped him apart, walked past them and scores the goal. And, you can quite clearly see what's there for all to see at this stage now that he hasn't played for us since then. He certainly hasn't started since then. He might have come on. I haven't got it in front of me, but I don't think he's played for us since that game. For a manager to make that his decision and make it quite clear that's why he's not playing and he's decided to go for somebody else at centre-back. Yeah, that's an average day decision that you'll see in football. If a player is punished for not playing at a certain level or is blamed for an incident like that and losing a game or conceding goals in a game, that's the average running of a football manager and a player. The thing that really gets me is a lot of what Rob said there, a lot of what you've said as well, is that you put somebody in there who makes repeated mistakes, which we've seen in most weeks. We've won 1 game since he's been put into the team. I don't think that's any coincidence. That he's been an issue when he's came in, but yet it's double standards, isn't it? Because Connor Cody's probably been cost, and I'm no fan of Connor Cody per se, but
nor am I.
Well, he's probably had his Everton career where we probably get him on a, really cheap fee in the summer, and he stays there for 3 or 4 years, and you've got a decent centre half there, and he's been blamed off that one thing, whereas Michael Keane is persisted with, regardless of doing much more than what another player has done. If you're Connor Cody, you're probably sitting there on the side, absolutely flipping, thinking, why am I not even getting a chance here? Or, fuck Everton off. As soon as the season finishes, I'll go back to Wolves and get a move to somewhere else. But with Keane, there's no doubt we'll see him starting against Brighton.
And the other thing as well with Connor Cody is when you're in the position that we're in, you need leaders. And Connor Cody is a leader. Yeah, Michael Keane is not.
No, he's no captain. But we've seen the captain that we've got. They were probably the only one and only captain we've got. Stretch it off in that game, which is a massive blow. People can talk about the level at which Seamus Coleman's at, but you'll see at this level, and obviously we're seeing right now, and we will do till the end of the season. The leaders are invaluable at clubs. We don't see him doing what he used to, and since bombing it forward and whipping a cross in, you see him defending as a competent right back, which we've really struggled with in that area of the pitch. Sean Dyche's comments after the game being made, and obviously it becomes obvious quite now. He said this again about the other night in the defeat against Newcastle at Goodison, where we were ripped apart in the second half. About first half play, the way in which we did play, the way in which we created chances. I wouldn't go as far as saying he's wrong about creating chances today, because I actually thought in the first 20 minutes when we take the lead, we actually look like a competent Premier League football side.
Yeah.
But Rob, it quickly turned the other direction, didn't it? But the first thing I wanted to go to you on this here is what you saw ahead of the defensive issues that we've spoken about quite a lot so far. When you looked at, he didn't start Damari Gray, he was on the bench, wasn't he? He didn't even get on the pitch, and we referred to the substitutions and the stubbornness as well. One slight positive first, though, before we proceed with what we were saying. Calvert-Lewin looked a lot better, healthier, and much more of a focal point for us to have up front.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it goes without saying. Obviously, we're when the alternative is no strikers or Dominic Calvert-Lewin, yes, absolutely. He's a big. It's such a chasm of difference that yes, and that's not a slight towards him, because I think for a guy who has been out for as long as he has and has struggled as much as he has, I think you're getting about the best case scenario with him. You know what I mean? And that, look, even at the height of Dominic Calvert-Lewin's powers, he would, just like we saw tonight, miss a absolutely gilt-edged chance that you almost feel like it's harder for him not to score, right? He had one of those tonight that felt like a turning point, and then that was the moment right before Leicester went right down the field, and per what Ben said earlier, 36-year-old Jamie Vardy absolutely ran rings around and stole the soul out of Michael Keane before hitting the crossbar, which would have made it 3-1. But yeah, look, I don't want to focus too much on that. I think Calvert-Lewin was obviously a net positive tonight. His penalty conversion was as confident as you could ask for from a guy who's been in the situation he's been in. Again, like, that's the thing. I don't know about you guys, but we go up 1-0, and I had absolutely zero confidence at that point that we were going to keep a clean sheet the rest of the way. And yet it feels very much like if the 1-0 plan doesn't work, we don't have a lot of other avenues, right? Like, if the game becomes open enough for us to score 2 goals, we're probably conceding as many, if not more, chances on the other end. And so Calvert-Lewin was a bright spot. I didn't have a problem with necessarily not starting Gray tonight. And like we said, you had I think that the formation was not so much the issue, and even the personnel from the midfield forward was about what anyone would have expected, right? Based on who's been playing. What to me was most shocking is that the only substitution made in this game was an enforced one after Seamus Coleman went off. You had Nathan Patterson, who I was reliably told could not possibly play right back in this league, guys, because if he could, he certainly would have played ahead of converted center backs like Mason Holgate and Ben Godfrey, who were absolutely terrible. And Patterson comes in, and look, I'm not claiming that he's some world-class right back, but he sure did look like he played the position and was kind of okay, right? Like, I don't understand how he fell so far down the pecking order that Ben Godfrey, who's awful, and Mason Holgate, who's awful, both of whom are awful at multiple positions, by the way. So I guess you can argue that they have real flexibility in the squad, but for him to not have played, felt baffling. Well, now it seems like Patterson's going to have to play, right? Like, I can't imagine a scenario where, obviously Coleman seems to be is done probably for the year, but I guess I would never dismiss anything with Coleman, right? But he's probably out. Patterson's got to play. I just don't think, like I would say it would stretch credibility for Dyche to put Godfrey back in or Holgate back in at that point. But I guess nothing would surprise me given that he continues to persist with Michael Keane. So I don't really know, but look, the midfield is what it is. Onana wasn't, he'd been ill. He didn't, come on and play tonight. Fine. I still would prefer, you can be underwhelmed by Onana, but I'd still rather have him in there over Garner. I don't really still get what Garner brings to this thing. And if you think I said Ghana instead of Garner, really, I'm probably right either way. I don't get what either of them really bring to this thing.
This is specifically your American accent, by the way.
Yeah. Garner and Ghana. Yeah.
Ghana or Garner.
Ghana or Garner. I'm just trying to enunciate for the crowd here, Dave. But look, the midfield is what it is. There just aren't a lot of options there. Decore, ever since he's come back, has just kind of been there. Oh boy, he was on such a nice little run before that red card, and then it's predictably been what it's been. But look, Calvert-Lewin getting through another game fit is the most silver lining I can extract by squinting as much as possible in this. Going into next week, it's just simply got to be, making some logical choices in terms of team selection. I don't anticipate, like I joked with Dave earlier, Ped, that like I have this theory that proud Englishman Sean Dyche has never forgiven Yerry Mina for scoring that World Cup brace against England. I think that might be what it is. So if you're not going to play Yerry Mina, fine, so be it. I don't, Yerry Mina's got a new kid and he's collecting 110, 120 grand a week from this club to do nothing. And if that's what Sean Dyche elects to do, so be it. But play Connor Cody. It can't possibly be worse, right? They need a little bit of that leadership. And look, you can get leadership from either Mina or Cody in this case that you just can't get from Michael Keane. And so I hope that Sean Dyche has a week to really reflect on this. I simply can't understand how he can watch this film and not make certain changes. But we're now looking at a stretch where we've got to hop over two rivals. We've got games left against, Wolves and Bournemouth, but also Brighton coming up and then City. And unfortunately, City still have things to play for. It's just, it feels, guys, like I'm not giving up, but this was the chance. This was the worst side we had left to play. Fulham was a side that had not won a game in months, and they just they wiped the floor with us. So like, I don't know that you can look at any game and be like, yeah, that's the opportunity. Like, at this point, the time for talk is over. They've just got to go out and do something. And that's really about where we're left at this point.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just to come to you now, Peter. I mean, I think that those 4 games we've got left there, I'd be astonished if we get to Bournemouth and still have something to play for, because the next 2 simply I don't see us getting anything from them. And I think when you've gone to 36 games and you're still hoping for others to lose around you and it's not in your hands, I think it's done and dusted then, sadly. But like you say, Rob, you blindfoldedly live in hope. But to go to Brighton, who've just done Wolves are owned by 6 goals to nil. They've been one of my favourite teams this season to watch. I think Brighton are absolutely brilliant to watch. By and large, look quite set to get a European position, which is fantastic for them. To go there and get anything, it's going to be a really big ask. City at home, they're a side that's probably going to go and do the treble, and will need it to stay above Arsenal and win the league. So those 2 fixtures for me they're so difficult for us to get anything from that. I'd be really surprised if we have to go. And then you have to go to Wolves. Wolves are safe now as well. Could be party time there. Let's hope that the last 2 games are on the beach. Let's hope we're still playing for something. But Rob was talking about the midfielders there, Pete, in Ghana, whichever you want to call it, or Onana. There's rhymes all over the place. Maybe that's why we've signed these lads, and maybe that's what makes sense. It'd make more sense than some of the players we've signed, wouldn't it, over the years? But I looked at that midfield 3. It was really interested in seeing how it played. Idrissa Gana Gueye he's just nowhere near the player we initially got a few years ago before he went off to PSG. Last few weeks, I've seen signs that it looked like he could get back to what we need there in a top class defensive midfield player. Again, didn't see much of that tonight. I thought there were times when Tielemans could stroll through us, Maddison could stroll through us, because I think when we started seeing that there were going to be chances for us to get goals in this game, the core started going forward a lot more. At which point, when they turned us around, he's had to sprint back. James Garner again. Somebody's had a poor injury, been out for most of the season. Come in, I think he's a very, very impressive young man. I just think he's the type of player that he's not for the situation that we're in. He's somebody you want to look at if you're a mid-table side and just watch him, put his slippers on in a game and just knock passes left, right, and centre, because that's the ability the lad's got. I think he's going to be a top class player. If we go down, probably not from us, but hopefully he stays. I know he was at Norwich last season on loan from Man United, and they absolutely adore him for everything he did. So maybe we hopefully keep him if we do go down. But again, that midfield trio, it just seems to be full of gaps so many times there. And then you've got, it was actually a decent game I thought Michalenko had on that side of the pitch as well. The also runners in the game, I thought were by and large okay at times. Like McNeil, I thought, like I said at the start, he was useless at the start, but then I thought he started to grow into the game. He got the ball a lot on the left-hand side. Michalenko was trying to overlap him. It didn't really work. And then the enigma that becomes Alex Iwobi scores a great equaliser, but, he's the one that gives the ball away, which they ultimately go and score in the first half. And in that, the microcosm of what I've just mentioned there is Everton to a T, isn't it? There's very few times when we actually look a potent side, but then when we don't, we're let down by the fact we go and concede goals. Just firstly, wanted your thoughts on that midfield tonight. Jekyll and Hyde, fair to say.
Yeah. I mean, one of the most baffling things for me, certainly in that second half, was that Dyche seemed to be constantly in communication with the core to tell him to get further up and to get closer to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And it looked to me as if the core was just chasing shadows in the end. He tried
to play him as a 10.
Yeah. And that was the most baffling thing for me when it came to the lack of substitutions, because I looked at it and thought, well, surely if you want to play Decore like that, then why not bring Tamari Gray on? Why not, or even drop Iwobi into that, that role and bring Tamari Gray on to play out wide? It genuinely baffled me that was happening. And as I say, Decore just looked lost in the end. One thing I would say though is, you're talking about the also players. Football's a funny game, isn't it? Because people watch football. You can watch the same 90 minutes and have completely different opinions. I thought Dwight McNeil, for me, was my man of the match. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. I thought he ran himself into the ground. Again, in terms of tracking back, in terms of getting on the ball, in terms of not being afraid to ask for the ball and get on the ball in possession and in times when we needed it. And he also managed to break really well as well. And he put some decent balls into the box. There was another little, sort of lovely little ball that he played through where their keeper was right on his toes and Dominic Calvert-Lewin sort of was just not quite there to get on the end of it. I thought Dwight McNeil was absolutely fantastic. And again, he's a player who I'd kind of written off. And, we talk about Michael Keane and rightly so. I think that he should be nowhere near the side. And I feel like he's literally only in the side because Sean Dyche, has that sort of loyalty to him from his time at Burnley. The flip side of that is that I think he is getting the best out of Dwight McNeil. And I think we are seeing the Dwight McNeil that I thought we were signing when we got him from Burnley. I think the lad is, fair play to him. He hasn't got he's not the fastest, he's not the quickest in the world, but I tell you what, he puts one shift in that lad and he does have quality. My hope, I keep going back to this. I'm not giving up. I'm really not giving up. And one of the main reasons why I'm not giving up, is, as I said earlier on, in terms of the teams around us and everything, and looking at their fixtures as well. You look at Leeds United. Leeds United have got Man City away, Newcastle at home, West Ham away, and then Tottenham on the last game of the season. Then you've got Forest who are playing Southampton. That's like a I mean, who do you want to win there? I'd prefer Southampton to win that because I feel like they're gone. I think a win. If Southampton finish above us, then yeah, you know what I mean. It's but then Forest go to Chelsea away. Then Forest play Arsenal at home. Arsenal obviously still in with a shout of winning the league. I think it's gone now, but still. And then Forest play Palace away on the last game of the season. Then you look at Leicester's fixtures. They've got Fulham away, then Liverpool at home, then Newcastle away, then West Ham at home. I'm looking at them fixtures, and I know that we talk about ours. This is, just to go back to what you were saying earlier, Dave, about our running and the fact that we, the Brighton and City game, and then we've got Wolves and then Bournemouth. I'm looking at those fixtures from the other side, thinking, well, to be fair, I can't see anyone pulling away from this. I really can't. I can't see anyone out of the four of us who are in this now who've got a chance of staying up. I can't see anyone pulling away. I thought Leicester tonight. This is why I thought the draw tonight actually was crucial. Going into the game, I was convinced only a win would do. But when I'm looking at the league table, when Leicester were winning 2-1, I was looking at it thinking, wow, that's like an absolute catastrophe. Like that for me was just, wow, we are down. Getting that point, and more importantly, taking the 2 points off Leicester, that for me keeps us in touch. And looking at Leicester's remaining fixtures, that could be an absolute hammer blow to them for their confidence. They could have gone 3-1 up with that penalty. Jordan Pickford plays the little mind games, goes to his right and then stays on his feet. Brilliant. Love it. Mm-hmm. That could absolutely demolish Leicester from now till the end of the season. And then I'm looking at Forest, and I'm looking at Leeds as well. All three of them are in absolute freefall. I'm not giving up hope. No one can give up. Evertonians, we can't give up, because if we give up, what's the excuse for that's an excuse for the players to give up. I'm not expecting them players to give up until the final whistle against Bournemouth, and I certainly won't be giving up. So every Evertonian out there, keep fighting for this club. The players showed fight tonight. They showed a bit of heart after going 2-1 down. It could have been easy for them to just do what they did against Newcastle and just capitulate, but they didn't. They carried on going, and fair play to them. I mean, I'll be the first to jump on their backs for not showing heart and not showing commitment, but I don't think I can say that tonight. And again, it goes back to individual errors which need to be sorted out. We need players to step up at this point. And going back to what I was saying about Dwight McNeil, he's a player who I actually feel has stepped up. Certainly, he's asking for the ball in dangerous positions. He's asking for the ball under pressure, and they're the types of players that you want to see on the side.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. That's what you want to see. The problem is that we're seeing it after the sun's gone down. In my opinion, this is just taking far too long for me. I mentioned the positive side of tonight's game, or the few that I saw. Calvert-Lewin, you mentioned there, McNeil in the second half. Again, I thought Michalenko was decent. I thought Patterson, when he came on, ripped their left-hand side to pieces in that little bit of possession that he had. All those sorts of things that happen in games. I'm like, well, it's so hard. It's so difficult to get excited is the wrong word, maybe enthused, maybe that they put that hope back in your heart with all this. But it's just with having 4 games left with the opposition that we've got. You're right. I don't want to put down what you've said there, Pete, because it's actually, as long as it's factually true, I'm not going to stop going to Goodison, and we're all not going to stop supporting our team or watching them. We're certainly not going to do that if we end up going down into the championship as well. But the thing that's so upsetting and so frustrating is the fact that it's taken so long for some of these lads and the manager to get to a point where you're looking at it saying, you know what, that's a great point that we've got. I'd love to be sat here, just before the World Cup starts, saying we've just got a decent point away at Leicester. I'd be sat here saying, yeah, we played really well there. It's a shame we didn't. Great save from Pickford, stopped us going 3-1 down. But look at the courage we showed to get back into it, draw 2-2. And yeah, we can improve because we've got our double run of away games we've got. We've got Brighton to go to, one of the best home sides in the league this season. I think we'll get something there. I'd love to be sat here thinking those things. The fact it comes in fits and starts at the stage of a season where we've won one game on the road, won 6 games in 34. I don't know. I don't know what other people feel. Our listeners, we always ask to let us know what you feel about this, and they won't be surprised to know what I'm feeling because I'm always known as being someone doom and gloom on this podcast. But I'm just, yeah, it's starting to pale into insignificance for me. What you did mention there, though, Pete, and referring this to you, Rob, before we finish, the runs of games that everybody else has got is just as or more difficult than what we have left to play. The issue I have is that I don't see us winning any of the last four, and even if we do, I don't see it being one that's going to matter. As in, we're probably already going to have gone down mathematically. How do you feel about this? Looking at how everything is, because I personally I don't know what you lads are like, but I'm constantly looking at that table, and I mean, by constantly I mean like most minutes of most days. I'm looking at that table, thinking, oh, if we do this, oh, I noticed someone's injured there. You know, some like I know Leeds' best player, Patrick Bamford's back playing, but he looks like he might have picked up a knock. Maybe that helps us out. I'm really at that stage now where I'm looking at the quietest, most minute issues that other clubs are having could be a potential positive to us, but it's really, really hard to see us getting away from this, isn't it, Rob?
Well, man, I want to balance this and try to be consistent with what I've said, which is that I'm not giving up hope yet. Like I know that I came in hot tonight and I'm negative, but it's more than I'm angry. I'm angry that we've had so many chances to pull away from this collection of fellow bad sides that we're stuck at the bottom of this table with, right? And I think it's just this feeling that we keep getting, we lose, and then we get a draw, and then we get a draw, and then we lose, and we get a draw. Like, we're not going to, I'm not convinced that we can draw our way out of this. And I'm just mad that it feels like, yes, some of this is due directly, and much of this is due directly to the incompetence of our owner and the board that he employs. Yeah. But I also think that a lot of this, there are some enforced shortcomings that the manager has and that we have as a squad. But there are also some unforced errors and unforced, self-inflicted wounds that we just continue to think. It's like there's this idea that we can just keep doing this and we're Everton and we'll just figure out a way out of this. And I just don't think that that's true. I think we've been living on borrowed time for a while. And while I do think that there's still a path because the other sides around us are also dealing with their own sets of issues and complications, I have to ask the question, when you don't win games, you've won 6 all season, where's the source of confidence coming from that we get out of this? I think that it's very much down to hope, and hope is not a plan. As I've said, I've echoed that often repeated mantra many times. Hope is not a plan. I think that there has got to be a real look in the mirror, everyone in the squad and certainly the manager, and ask themselves, what is best for this stretch run? And there just simply have to be some choices made that really aren't hard choices. They're just choices that may involve swallowing a little bit of pride and deciding that, we've got to make some changes and some decisions here that will, that can ultimately save us. Because for any of you who say, like, whether it's arguing about a player here or there or whatever, well, what does one performance mean? Well, boy, every point is valuable. If you're going to say that the point is valuable today, I would contend that if you can get one player playing over another leads to 2 points here, 1 point there, that would have made a huge difference throughout this season. And now I look at the table. Look, we're basically, by all measures, we're in 19th. We're 13 or 14 games into the Dyche regime. We started in 19th and we're still in 19th. It's amazing. I don't even know how we've pulled this off, but we're in 19th, but yet we're only a point behind 4 other sides, and we have better goal differential but only better goal differential than one of them. And so, it's like goal differential is not going to help us either. It's we've got to find a win somewhere. I believe. I think that maybe Bournemouth is that chance. I don't know where it comes from, but I do know that having to watch other bad football teams and monitor their injury situations and monitor scores and everything. This is just if this is not. This is just there's nothing in this anymore. And I think a lot of fans are just so tired, and I don't blame them. I'm exhausted from this.
Yep.
But Everton, look, we're gonna be there. To Ped's point, we just got to stick with it until there's no hope anymore. But I think what's frustrating is that I think that we're in a position where some will say, hey, this point gave us hope today, while others will just say that this point just further delayed what the bill that's in the mail that's been coming for a while. Like it's been delaying the inevitable. And it's now down to what we do with these last few matches. And it could turn into a pretty cool story, but we've squandered so many chances, and it has felt needless. And that's where I'm trying to balance my negativity of being angry at those in charge from the manager on up, but also still just trying to hold on to some modicum of belief that, hey, it's sports, and in sport, weird things happen, and it just takes the bounce of a ball here, takes a decision there, it takes an injury there, or, a player stepping up in a way that we didn't expect, a player or players, maybe it's the discussion we've had about Connor Cody or Mina or someone, coming in that, is a mystery guest that we don't expect to come in, but Everton needs some kind of spark, and sticking with the same formula is not delivering what is needed. So something, I don't know what it is, but something has to change. There is only value in consistency when that consistency delivers results. And when that consistency does not deliver results, that's just stubbornness, plain and simple.
Spot on.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to end this show. The 11th hour is approaching for Everton to stay in the Premier League and hopefully survive. Heaven knows what's going to come next if we don't. But there's still 4 games to go. And we're still to go as well. We'll be here wherever the Blues are on the Blue Room, as you know. Make sure you join us on Patreon. There's loads of extra content coming there, including the latest mailbag, which is absolutely hilarious with me, Les, and Kate, who made a return as well. Excuse me. We'll have Subs Weekly coming up tomorrow. We'll also have the normal weekly as well on Wednesday, and loads more to come ahead of that Brighton game, that crucial Brighton game that we're going to have next week. Thanks to Pete, thanks to Rob, and thanks for listening as always.